I've been to 2 grief groups now, but other than that, I pretty much just like to stay in the comfortable stage of denial about this, because the only person that could possibly help me get through my brother's death would be my brother. He was my best friend. We talked every day, and because there was no one else that understood. We had done all of this awful stuff together, and I didn't judge him and he didn't judge me, and we knew how shitty one another was or had been in addiction, you know what I mean? And so there was no reason to ever hide, or sugarcoat anything, It was just 100% the truth. And it was so amazing to see him just like thriving and succeeding, and just like looking amazing and feeling amazing and doing amazing, and all of this life was coming back to us and stuff. And so we were each other's like biggest cheerleaders, We went to church together, we went to the gym together, we did we had lunch together, we had dinner together. He'd pop in at the house, and have dinner with us. And it was just there's not another human being that can ever replace him in my life, He was 7 years older than me. So I idolized him. He was my hero. I just couldn't put it into words how cool he was. He was really cool. He was transcendent. He had like a huge social circle. Always had pretty girlfriends, he played sports, he was gifted. So he was like top of his class. He was really cool. He was also a really genuinely sweet person. He was really sensitive. He didn't like bullies, He just had a huge heart. He loved animals. There was a lot of hunting in my family. That's kind of like what the guys did. There's a really kind of like an infamous story in our family about my grandpa helped him make a trap, just like an animal trap. And it didn't hurt the animal, it just trapped it, And it was just kind of a cool thing, I think, for a little boy to, like pretend like he's like Davy Crockett or whatever and, make a trap. So it was Christmas morning and there was something in the trap. So my grandpa came over and got my brother and they went to go see what was in the trap, and it was a bunny, and then like the next step in the process would be to like shoot the bunny, and my brother was like, can we just let him go? My grandpa's like, absolutely, it's your rabbit, you just let him go. My brother never shot a deer. He just didn't have any interest. He just he was a kind-hearted person. And he was a really good brother. He always included me and played with me. Most of my like fun memories of childhood are doing something with him, playing some kind of game with him, or sledding, or just four-wheelers, whatever. And then at a certain point, I think he was about 15. He, kind of drifted away from being so awesome and successful in all of these things that he was doing, and he started using drugs. He started experimenting with drugs. At the time, I was, a small child, but he also began a really, really just a years-long struggle and addiction to cocaine. And that just went on and on and on, and alcohol, and followed him well into adulthood. And that made him not a nice guy, you know? But I idolized my brother, and I wanted to be just like him. So, then the natural thing for me to do was to try to do these things that my brother was doing so that we could then bond together, you know, and be close again. So that's what I started doing. Just gravitating towards people and situations, places where those things would be available, you know. And then my brother and I eventually were just doing drugs together. Whenever there are two people in addiction, eventually when it got really, really bad, you know, and like a horrible stage of active addiction, you can't really have friends. You know what I mean? Because it's pretty much every man for himself in that situation. So we were also one another's worst enemies many times. I mean, like, I wouldn't blink to screw my brother over, you know, if it meant that I could get high, and he was the same way with me. But there was a really long period of time where he was viewed worse than me, and my addiction was like kind of protected. Like, I was enabled for longer. I believe it would have been in 2018. He got arrested, and he was charged with 18 felonies. It was a lot. They did not hold back.
Overachiever right there, boy.
Yeah, there was a lot. And so he, you know, he was there. There he was in his situation, in his mess, you know. And by the grace of God, he was given like 10 years probation. And they gave him another chance. So he went in straight into the Hope Homes program, Hope Homes and Teen Challenge of the Ozarks. It was a thing, and just excelled, did great. Eventually was running that program, and then once he stepped out of that, he got a job, and he had 5 solid years where he just did amazing, you know. He was working for CMC here in Springfield. They really, really liked him. They saw all the potential in him, and trusted him with a lot. And he just did great. I got clean. It was roughly a year after he did. And so we got to have like 4 awesome years of just doing recovery life together. He was in a relationship. And he really had decided, he had proposed, you know. He really had decided that that this was going to be his second chance, I think, you know. He had just really wasted and neglected so many years and chances with his own children, you know. And so I think in this relationship and with this girl, he decided that that this was going to work, you know, and this was it. This is what he was going to do with his life. And he wanted to make an impact, you know, on these kids and be a part of their lives and help raise them and stuff. And so he really invested. He really let his guard down, I feel like, you know, and decided that he was going to marry this girl. And then when that did not go, you know, the way that he was hoping it would go, he really, 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 really got hurt, and it got hurt in a way that like felt humiliating to him, you know, and he just spiraled. He went into a really, really deep depression. We went to another friend's funeral who died of an overdose. And we went out to lunch after that funeral. And we sat there, and he ordered a drink. And I was like, what are you doing? What is this? You know? And he was like, well, I'm having a drink, and I don't care what you think about it. You know? And I was like, well, I'll have you know that I do think about it. I'm going to continue to think about it. I'm really thinking about it. You know, this doesn't seem good. I don't like this. And he's like, it'll be fine. It's going to be fine. You know? And then we sat there and talked about our friend's funeral. And then he actually told me jokingly how he would want his own funeral service to go, you know? And then we talked about, this friend that had been in recovery and had just been doing amazing, and was getting all of his life back, just getting blessings. How he had gone back into addiction and floundered around for a minute, and then he died. We both agreed that we wouldn't want that there would just be nothing that would ever make us go back into the hell of being a junkie, So he told me, no, I'd just do a big shot and kill myself. It's definitely what I would do. I'm not gonna go through all that again and put everybody through all that again. And I was like, yeah, I agree. But I didn't know when we were having this conversation, that like, I don't know, that he was foreshadowing for me, what was going to happen 2 weeks later. So he didn't go to work for a couple of days. Him and the girl were kind of fighting on and off and stuff. And I went over there and checked on him. And he was like in a bathrobe and he did not look good, And I was like, well, what are you doing? I brought him some food. We talked. And he gave my daughter, my baby, he gave her Christmas presents early because, he died on December 1st. So this would have been 2 days before that. So he gave my little girl her Christmas presents early and let her play with them while we were sitting there talking. And again, I didn't. I just didn't think that this would happen, So the next day, he didn't go to work again. And he promised me that he was going to go the following day. Promised me. And so I went over there that evening again to check on him. He was fine. He was great. He looked good. Everything was okay. We talked about Noam Chomsky, the manufactured consent or something. I can't remember. He was telling me that there was this thing that I needed to read, and then, said goodbye, I love you. And then that was it. And then the next day he was dead. I was at work and the next day, and I was assuming that, he was at work too, because he had been so convincing the night before, when I came by. I just had popped in before bed to bring him some concealer for his black eye because he didn't want to. He didn't want to go to work with it, He was really embarrassed. And so I dropped that off. And like I said, we had talked and he just like completely, I don't know, I don't know if he knew what he was going to do. I think he did though. I feel like he did. And he was just really, really convincing, that everything was going to be okay. And so I went to work assuming that he had gone to work. And then one of his best friends, Skylar, called me and he said that God had told him to go and check on Michael because he wasn't at work again, And he was like, I'm outside his house. His car's here, but he's not answering the door. He's not answering his phone, And I started calling him and messaging him, and they weren't being delivered. Like his phone was off, I think. And I was just messaging him like, it's fine. It's okay. Just open the door and tell Skylar that you're fine. And then like, we won't bother you. He's not going to bother you. You know what I mean? But just like, at least just do that so he knows you're okay. And nothing, absolutely nothing, getting nothing back. And, I called Skylar and I was like, well, I'm going to come over there, and he's like, no, don't do that. He's like, I'm just going to wait, and he's going to have to come to the door and deal with me at some point. So I'm just going to stay here. And then it was like 45 minutes later, I called him again and he's like, no, he's not. He's still not answering the door. And he's like, I'm trying to find a way in, he's like, I'm trying to get a hold of the landlord or just see if we can get in there, and I was like, well, just kick the door in. And I was like, I'm on my way. So at that point I just knew like something, God was telling me. Like I knew. I already knew when Skylar called me the first time, but I was like, let's not go there, And So I called my husband and I asked him if he would go over there as well. They all worked together, and if he would go over there and just be there when I got there, because I was like, I feel like this is going to be really bad. So just in case, can you be there? And so they had gotten another close mutual friend of ours. She's really small, and they had pulled the air conditioning unit out of the window, and she had gone in the window. And so by the time I pulled up, they had found him. And my husband was on the phone with 911, They wouldn't let me go in and see him. I don't hate, whoever was the person, the individual that sold him this. I'm not angry at them. I don't know that there is someone to be angry at, but I don't choose to put my anger there, because I know that my brother and I both, when we were in our addictions, wouldn't have been, shared that with all kinds of people, hundreds of people, and any one of them could have died. And so whoever it is, I hope that they're okay, and I hope that they get help, and I want them to have a good life and to understand the devastation, and the destruction that world, is bringing into communities. But I've been to 2 grief groups now, but other than that, I pretty much just like to stay in the comfortable stage of denial about this, because the only person that could possibly help me get through my brother's death would be my brother. He was my best friend. We talked every day, and because there was no one else that understood. We had done all of this awful stuff together, and I didn't judge him and he didn't judge me, and we knew how shitty one another was or had been in addiction, you know what I mean? And so there was no reason to ever hide, or sugarcoat anything, It was just 100% the truth. And then we also loved each other so much, and it was so amazing to see him just like thriving and succeeding, and just like looking amazing and feeling amazing and doing amazing, and all of his life was coming back to us and stuff. And so we were each other's like biggest cheerleaders, We went to church together, we went to the gym together, we did we had lunch together, we had dinner together. He'd pop in at the house, and have dinner with us. And it was just, there's not another human being that can ever replace him in my life, If you feel yourself in a place where you're hurting and you're isolated, and you're having these thoughts, and this seems like a solution. You just need to know that God is there. God is there. My brother, I think he forgot that. I think he stopped praying. And I think he stopped surrendering and just decided that he was hopeless, But that is not the truth. That's not the truth. And I have now experienced, some of my darkest days of my entire life since this happening, since losing him. But not on one of those days has God abandoned me.